Hey everyone, I'm Aaron Riven, and I'm the director of The Gathering Storm. I want to start by wishing a happy holidays to everyone out there celebrating. I apologize if there's any noise. I'm recording at my mom's place and they're cooking in the kitchen. I've gotten a lot of questions over the last 2 weeks and I've been meaning to do a Q&A video. This is attempt number 4, so hopefully this one works. On that note, let's dig in. First question comes from Anonymous and says, do we get to see how Snape acts when he's solely around Mulciber and Avery? That's something I've always wanted to see. If so, did you write it like Severus was completely on board with the Muggle-born hating, or that he had a slight disdain for their actions, however small they might have been? I've seen it go both ways. That's a really good question, because Snape's relationship with Mulciber and Avery and the rest of the gang is complicated. Snape's in a really bad place in his life at the beginning of our story, having just lost Lily in the portrait hole scene, which is one of our first scenes in the film, and you guys saw in the Indiegogo video. But he's kind of aimless. He doesn't know what to do with himself because he doesn't have Lily anymore. And Mulciber sees that and sees an opportunity and sees a lot of potential in Snape and decides to sort of take him under his wing. As opposed to Mulciber and Avery and Regulus, for example, it's not about blood purity and stuff for him. For Snape, it's more personal. He hangs out with Mulciber and Avery and such because they treat him with respect. Because from their point of view, because he serves a purpose. From his point of view, they're his friends. Power and respect are a really big deal for Snape because they're something he's never had, especially looking at his relationship with his father, which was a huge motivation for the way we approached Snape. The next question comes from Fearsome Skeletal Goddess and says, what kind of camera did you use? The quality looks insanely good. And what was your process? How did you come across your locations? As a filmmaker, I'm tremendously curious. Your film looks amazing, by the way. Thank you so much. We shot on a C300. Beyond that, I'm probably not the best person to talk to about technical questions. If you guys do have those, I can direct them towards Amanda McGrady, who is our cinematographer, who could answer just about anything for you. As for the locations, that's something I can handle a little better because that was something I did. Frankly, what it comes down to is the internet is an incredible tool. It was a lot of Googling, a lot of in-depth internet hunting, finding, places that had the look we were trying to get. We searched all over the greater New England area, and it was a lot of internet searches and zip-carring around to check places out. We shot, everywhere from Worcester, Massachusetts, to the Forbidden Forest in New Hampshire, to the Gryffindor Common Room and McGonagall's office down in Fairhaven, Massachusetts, to the Dada classroom that was in Boston itself. We were all over the place. Next question comes from Trekker Bud and asks, will you be in the film, perhaps in an Alfred Hitchcock / Stan Lee cameo? I actually do appear in the film more than once. Towards the end of the film, in a role I can't really talk about, I make an appearance in the Gryffindor Common Room at one point, and as a Hufflepuff student at another point. I think I've actually been a Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, and a Ravenclaw, so I gotta get my green on during pickups, I guess. I know this isn't specifically TGS related, but I was wondering what got you into directing in the first place. It actually kind of is TGS related. I initially enrolled at Emerson as an animation major, and after a couple weeks realized that was just, I really don't know why I chose to do that. I have no idea what possessed me. And I didn't have the GPA after my first semester to transfer into the general film production major because I'd screwed around in one of my freshman classes. Guys, do your work. Don't mess around. So I transferred into studio television production, which I was told was the best general film degree for me. And that ended up being how to run a news show or talk show kind of thing, and I was bored out of my mind. So I transferred out of studio TV production, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I knew, because I'd been working on various sets since my freshman year, mostly in costume design and production design, that I really loved being on set and that experience. So I was trying to figure out what to do because my GPA was sunk and I didn't have the 3.5 needed to transfer into film production. And then I was looking at all the options and directing, and I just started thinking about it, and it felt right. So I transferred into it, and shortly after that I started working on this project, which, even still, is far and above the biggest project I've ever worked on. Probably the biggest project just about everyone on our set has worked on, except maybe Amanda and possibly Jack, our gaffer. But directing's a really cool experience, and it's definitely a learning process, especially since since principal photography wrapped, doing everything I can to better myself as a director. If you're interested in directing, my current read, highly, highly recommended, Directing Actors by Judith Weston. I've learned more from that book alone than I have in every directing class I've ever taken, and I can't wait to get to set in a couple weeks and really start applying what I've learned here, because directing is the kind of thing where you keep learning, and it's a hard thing to learn in the classroom especially, so it takes a lot of like outside self-teaching, but definitely keep at it if you're interested. Our next question comes from Anonymous and says, how long did it take to determine the story arcs? What has been your favorite element of putting the film together? Which of your characters, professors included, do you associate with the most? And favorite audition story? Sawyer and I have been working on this since October of 2013. I believe Ben, who's our third co-writer and also plays Remus in the film, joined on sometime in late January, early February, and we were working on the script well into the end of March, I would say. So that's probably 5 months of working on this story. There was one point where our entire kitchen floor was covered in index cards with story points that we needed to hit and how to connect those. How the Marauders and Lily and their friends ended up as some of the young members of the Order of the Phoenix, and how Snape and Regulus and the Slytherins ended up with the Death Eaters, and how the war in general affected life at Hogwarts. Figuring out exactly how to tell that story and what we wanted to include within it took a really long time, especially with the work we put into trying to keep it in continuity with both the books, and we do take some elements from the films as well. Next part of the question asks, what was your favorite element of putting the film together? That first day on set, getting to walk in and see everyone in costume and the set together and go, wow, this is real, we're really doing this. About halfway through the first day, I also got to present the cast with their wands, each character having their own custom design that myself and Alavan spent a lot of time on, and getting to present those to them was a really special moment. The third one I have to talk about, just because for me at least it was really special, was the casting process, which you also asked about. After working with these characters for 5 or so months, getting to find the people that could really bring those characters to life was a really, really fun experience. And you asked about favorite casting stories, so I'm just going to jump to that one really quick. But the ones that are coming to mind, we had some really interesting auditions for Slughorn, including one guy who came in doing what I can only describe as an impression of the Lucky Charms leprechaun. Another who came in and just started doing impressions of various Muppet characters. And of course Mark Solari, who we ended up casting as Professor Horace Slughorn, who came in and did a very dramatic reading of the Jabberwocky. Beyond that, favorite casting story, I think I actually have to give to Laura, who plays Lily Evans in the film. We received well over 100 auditions from across the country for Lily, and Laura's was the very last one to come in, and began with a paragraph-long apology for the fact that she'd had trouble uploading her video, and to please, please, please give her a chance. Of course, we didn't see this till the next morning anyway, so it didn't make a difference. But Sawyer and I were watching through all of them that morning, and we got to Laura's at the very end, and watched it in complete silence, and then when it ended, Sawyer and I both turned to each other, and in complete sync said, "That's our Lily." Laura is just one of the most talented and enthusiastic actresses I've ever had the pleasure of working around or with. Last part of your question asked which character do I associate with most. I'm going to go General Potter universe here and go with Ron Weasley. Next question comes from Punk Rock Unicorns and asks, in the trailer video it says that you think Dumbledore was talking about Snape when he says, "I once knew a boy who made all the wrong choices." Don't you think he was referring to Grindelwald? I always thought that. It never occurred to me that he could have been referring to Snape. Sorry about that, the end got messed up and I'm re-recording it now. Punk Rock Unicorns is referring to a line that Sawyer said in the Indiegogo video. But to answer your question, yes, when we were working on the script, we did interpret that line as talking about Severus. The great thing about that quote, though, is that it could be applied to any number of characters. It could be Grindelwald, you're right. It could be Tom Riddle. It could be Severus, as we chose to interpret it. It could even be Dumbledore himself. Anonymous asks, you've mentioned your background is originally in production design. So what was your favorite set, and which was your favorite prop? My favorite set I have to give to the Gryffindor Common Room set out at Fairhaven Unitarian Memorial Church. A lot of the cast have talked about Hammond and how beautiful that set was, and there's no denying that. But I'm going to pick a set that we actually did some work on ourselves. So I'm going to go with the Gryffindor Common Room. Rue and her team put an incredible amount of work in, and it looks beautiful. It's probably the set we spend the most time in the film as well. As for my favorite prop, I'm going to say the wands. A couple of them are replicas of the movie ones, but for the most part, the wands were custom made by Alavans, who, if you've never seen their work, go check them out. I worked closely with their team to come up with designs that really reflected the characters. Anonymous asks, if you had to pick one character, who would you say is the lead of the Gathering Storm? That would have to be Lily. She's sort of the Kevin Bacon of the story, if you will. She's the web that connects the Gathering Storm. Trashmel asks, oh god, this is so important to me. Thank you. Where does the Gathering Storm come from? I mean, why did you choose that name? The title's originally a reference to Hagrid's line in Order of the Phoenix, there's a storm coming, just like last time. It's also a reference to a book by Winston Churchill about World War II, and as everyone knows, there is a very strong parallel between both of the Wizarding Wars and World War II and the Nazi regime. Our last question comes from Anonymous and asks, what was your favorite scene you filmed this summer? Which scene are you looking forward to shooting most? This film is my baby and I can't pick just one scene, but favorite scenes we've shot already off the top of my head, Matt, who plays Mulciber, has a wonderful monologue towards the end of the film that I really, really love. There's the fight between Lily and Snape outside the portrait hole from The Prince's Tale, which you guys saw a snippet of in the Indiegogo video. And both of them just blew us away. Ben and Laura have both talked about the Remus-Lily fireplace conversation scene, which we all loved, and they did an absolutely incredible job with. I mentioned we pulled bits from the films, and the friendship that Remus alludes to in Prisoner of Azkaban on the bridge scene when he's talking about, your mother was there for me at a time when no one else was. We really wanted to build that friendship between them. There's a scene in the halls, and it's probably Andrew who plays James's best scene that we've filmed so far, where James is arguing with the other Marauders because he suspects that Snape is behind everything that's happened at Hogwarts that year, and the other Marauders think that he's letting his feelings about Snape get in the way of his judgment. And it's a very clear parallel to Harry and Draco in The Half-Blood Prince, which leads to one of my favorite scenes that I'm looking forward to for pickups, the duel between James and Snape. Sawyer and Andrew don't have that many scenes together, so I'm really looking forward to giving them that one-on-one scene and really letting them go at it. It's going to be a lot of fun to shoot. There's also the confrontation scene between Sirius and Regulus, which is going to be a really intense scene to shoot, and I'm really, really looking forward to. It's probably one of the most acting-demanding scenes in the script, but essentially it's the first time the two of them have spoken since Sirius ran away from home the summer before and went to live with the Potters. And the way Regulus sees it, Sirius traded one brother for another. But the scene I'm probably looking forward to most is the Marauders party in the Gryffindor common room, which was one of the scenes that was at risk during the Indiegogo, and thanks to you guys, we're going to be able to shoot. Things are getting pretty dark by that point in the script, and the Marauders decide that it's their job to lift everyone's spirits and decide to throw a party in the common room. And it's just a great scene for character development and relationship exploration. Shippers are just going to have a field day with this scene. We get to explore almost all of the major Marauders era ships. All of the Gryffindors really get a chance to shine in this scene, and I'm really, really looking forward to that, and it's going to be a blast to shoot. That's the last of my questions. Thank you guys so much for sending them in, and if you have any others, my ask box is always open. I know I speak for the entire team when I say we cannot wait to go back for pickups in a couple weeks and to finish this story the way it deserves to be told, which we could not have done without your guys' help. Thank you so much for all your support over the past year. We couldn't have done it without you. And have a happy holidays.